In the mid-1970s, the music world was at its peak, and among the many bands that shaped the sound of the era, American rock band Heart held a special place. Few people know, but the band started its existence much earlier than the 70s. Ann Wilson had her own band, Ann Wilson and the Daybreaks, back in 1967 and recorded a couple of singles with them, which were later released by a local label. After a while, she joined the band The Army, featuring brothers Mike and Roger Fisher. In 1972, the band changed its name to Whiteheart, and 2 years later, Nancy Wilson joined them, replacing Mike Fisher, who became their manager. In 1975, they shortened the band's name to Heart. Although Heart began in 1972 in Seattle, it was 1975 when they moved to Vancouver, recorded and released their debut album, Dreamboat Annie. Dreamboat Annie immediately gained attention with hits such as Magic Man and Crazy on You. These songs captivated listeners from the first notes with their unique sound. Melodic guitar riffs, powerful vocals, and emotional lyrics created an atmosphere of mystery and depth. In the song Crazy on You, for example, Nancy Wilson performed one of the most memorable guitar intros in rock history, which instantly made her a household name. At the time, all-female rock bands were rare, much less one led by two talented sisters, Ann and Nancy Wilson. Ann, a vocalist with a powerful voice that pierces to the core, and Nancy, a guitarist with a mastery of acoustic and electric guitar, made the band a true phenomenon on the music scene. When Heart released their debut album Dreamboat Annie in 1975, no one expected the record to literally blow up radio stations across North America. At that time, radio played a key role in promoting music, and success on the radio was the key to success for any artist. The band Heart managed to make a real breakthrough, which not only helped them to quickly gain popularity, but also changed the very perception of rock music on radio waves. The band Heart not only became famous for their hits and innovative approach to music, but also found themselves at the center of several scandals that surrounded them throughout their career. One of the first major scandals in Heart's history occurred early in their career when they signed to Canadian label Mushroom Records, after releasing their successful debut album, Dreamboat Annie, in 1975. The main problem was that Mushroom Records attempted to promote the band through scandalous publicity, hinting at a possible romantic or even sexual relationship between sisters Ann and Nancy Wilson. The label published an advertisement in Rolling Stone magazine with an image of the two sisters and the headline, "It was only our first time," which caused shock and outrage. Ann and Nancy were extremely offended by this move, as it was a clear insinuation of an incestuous relationship. As a result, the sisters broke their contract with Mushroom Records and filed a lawsuit, demanding that the contract be terminated and that the label stop releasing their music. The label, in turn, responded by releasing the band's incomplete second album magazine without Heart's consent, which also triggered the lawsuits. The band eventually won the case, and the album was withdrawn from store shelves and re-released in a completed version. In the 1980s, Ann faced constant pressure from the media because of her appearance. At the time, the rock industry was focused on beauty ideals, and many critics openly discussed Ann's weight and appearance, which caused her a deep sense of insecurity. The press regularly criticized her for being overweight, which became a serious emotional problem for the singer. This media pressure affected her self-esteem and even her band career. This period coincided with the fact that other female band members, especially Nancy, were often portrayed as symbols of beauty and sexuality, which heightened the contrast. Ann has spoken publicly about how negative comments about her appearance affected her mental health and caused her to become deeply depressed. Like many other successful bands, there were also conflicts within Heart, especially during their period of greatest popularity. One of the most tense moments in the band's history was the disagreement between the Wilson sisters and other members of the band. This involved both musical decisions and management issues. leading to changes in the band's lineup throughout the 80s and 90s. Toward the end of the 1980s, the band faced a creative crisis, and their albums were no longer having the same success as before. Tensions grew, leading to Heart's temporary breakup in the early 90s. The Wilson sisters focused on their solo projects and family life, and the band was dormant for several years. In 2016, when an incident occurred that greatly affected the relationship between the Wilson sisters. During one of the concerts on the Heart tour, Ann Wilson's husband, Dean Vedder, assaulted Nancy Wilson's sons. The conflict stemmed from the children accidentally leaving a door open on the tour bus, which angered Vedder. As a result of the conflict, he physically assaulted the teens. The incident led to Vedder's arrest and violent charges. The Wilson sisters found themselves in a difficult situation, with Ann defending her husband and Nancy siding with her children. This event led to a serious breakdown in the relationship between the sisters, which had jeopardized the continued existence of the band. After the 2016 tour, Heart stopped performing together, and each of the members of the collective engaged in their own projects. Despite all the scandals and conflicts, the band Heart has always been able to recover. Sisters Ann and Nancy Wilson have proven time and again that music and love for creativity can overcome even the deepest disagreements. In 2019, they reunited once again for the Love Alive tour, showing that despite the challenges, they remain some of the most colorful figures in rock history. The band Heart was an innovator not only musically but also socially. In the mid-70s, the rock scene was predominantly male, and few believed that women could not only sing but also play guitar, drums, and create lyrics on the level of leading rock bands. Ann and Nancy Wilson proved otherwise, and their success paved the way for future generations of female musicians. Interestingly, Heart was never afraid to experiment with genres. They could go from hard-hitting hard rock to ballads with elements of folk, and this wide musical range was one of the main reasons for their long-term success. Heart's importance in music history can hardly be overemphasized. Their contribution was not only in creating rock hits, but also in breaking stereotypes about the role of women in the music industry. They became role models for many subsequent performers and inspired them to go against established norms. It's been almost 5 decades since Heart released their first album, but their music is still relevant today. Songs recorded in 1975 continue to inspire new generations of musicians and fans. Heart is not just a band. It is a symbol of freedom, independence, and musical courage. Their music still sounds powerful in spite of time and reminds us that true art has no expiration date.